Da, 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 da.
Well, that's a nice intro music from Dave Wheeler. Welcome to Talking Niagara this morning. So, can
Yes,
you do that
indeed.
every morning? Can you do that every morning?
Sure.
I'm
Da,
not
da,
saying the
da,
same.
da, da, da.
I'm not
Welcome
saying the
to
same 5 bars,
Talking
but
Niagara.
something.
Yes,
Yeah,
I won't give up my day job.
yeah, yeah. Exactly. And what is your day job exactly? We
Well,
were.
I put on my Facebook that I'm idol worshiper at 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 the at the Temple of Indolence, which idol I spell IDLE. At the
I D E
in
L.
other words, idle, do nothing at
Yeah,
the Temple of
yeah,
Indolence, which is lazy. Indolence is another word for lazy. But bump.
yeah. So a lazy do nothing. Yeah. Lazy good for
Layabout.
nothing, do
Yeah.
nothing. Yeah, okay, gotcha. Got it. Right now I know where we are. Got it. Okay, so we were talking about Legionnaires' disease a little while ago. And funnily
Yes,
enough,
indeed.
this article came up during the weekend about Legionnaires' disease. What is it, etc. And is basically we get typically, I suppose, about 350 cases a year in Canada of Legionnaire's disease. Currently, oh, sorry, Ontario. Currently, we're at 363 confirmed cases in. Sorry, there's 363 in 24, uh, and roughly in line with the annual average of 354. All right. But
Yeah, this is.
there was an outbreak that sickened 40 people in London recently. And one of the things infectious disease physician Dr. Isaac Bogoch explains is that bacterial infections live in nature.
Dr. Isaac Bollocks.
Bogoch, Bogoch,
Oh, I thought it
not
was going to be Bollocks of Bollocks.
no, no.
Hmm.
He explained that bacterial infection lives in nature, which means it can be found in soil and water. However, he stresses that illnesses don't spread from person to person. They can only be contacted by breathing in via way of human-made systems like air conditioners and things. And typically, what happens with these is they come from outbreaks of things like cooling tower, HVAC systems, water coolers, and water towers.
It's very interesting, isn't it? This is this is a bacterial disease that cannot be transmitted person to person,
Yeah.
but the
If you
bacteria
got
is
Legionnaires,
normally.
yeah, if you got Legionnaire's disease, even if you cough on me, I won't get it. But I get
No.
it through the air conditioning system.
Yes, and it behaves very much like bacterial pneumonia, and in fact, it's treated the same way. It's a very debilitating, or could be very dangerous
All right, very dangerous.
respiratory disease. As a matter of fact, that's already killed one Ontarian,
Yeah,
according to this article in 360. The problem here is they haven't found out where these people got it. Where is that common denominator?
yeah,
Obviously, all of these people must have been somewhere the same, whether it was a grocery store, whether it was a library, whether it was, I don't know what else could be, an office. Somewhere along the line, there has to be a common denominator
yeah,
because this is, unless there's more than one place that happens to have had Legionnaires bacteria in the system. It's a naturally occurring bacteria, but because thankfully, because it cannot be transmitted person to person, it it has to have a location to do that.
yeah.
It's like people eating
Well,
poison mushrooms.
and the typical thing, I only know this because I've seen I've seen reports about Legionnaires' disease in the past. One of the biggest complaints about Legionnaires' disease in UK, for example, is that it used to happen quite widely in older hospitals because they'd have like 100-year-old heating ducts or cooling ducts.
Now, this was first identified as Legionnaire's disease at I think it was a veterans sort of a collection of veterans in, I think it was Chicago, but I'm not sure, where a
Yeah,
bunch of veterans got sick and they determined and died,
yeah,
and they
oh yeah,
determined that it was in the HVAC system of the hotel,
yeah,
I think it was.
yeah, yeah.
Now, where did this come from? Because we haven't heard, like, it had to be identified then. Presumably, it was around all the time. But until we have these big centralized
Well, that's
HVAC
kind of
systems,
what this doctor is saying. Is this stuff gets into the ground, soil and water, and that sort of thing, and gets transmitted usually when you've got an HVAC system or water coolers or water towers, right?
yeah. So how does it get in there? And obviously, this hasn't been a real issue until we've had these big HVAC systems.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, it is probably occurred once or twice before, but not being probably identified because they're because it cannot be transmitted person to person. It would just be one of those anomalies. Somebody got this respiratory disease that looks very similar to to bacterial pneumonia, but it's not. But because there have probably very little cases of it pre HVAC systems, in other words, it had to wait until it could be spread in mass through HVAC systems. So
But yeah, but HVAC systems are not that new. Not exactly new. We've been having HVAC systems probably 150 years now.
no, not like that. You've never had big. It's usually air conditioning, and we've very until the 70s or 80s. Like we didn't have any. Uh, I think I got my first central air conditioner in
Oh no,
1988.
sorry, I wasn't meaning in homes. I was meaning in places like hospitals and offices and that sort of thing have been going for quite some time.
I don't. Well, the Legionnaire's disease dates from the time when HVAC systems became more ubiquitous. Prior to the 70s, most hospitals and most institutions did not have HVAC systems. And I could tell you, when I was traveling in the early 80s, I went to London one time, and I was in major hotel chains when I was transferring from flights and stuff like that, when I had to stay a night or
Yeah,
two, and they did not have
HVAC.
air conditioning systems, probably because they didn't think they
Well,
needed it.
vast majority of hotels run air conditioning systems. Even big hotels run air conditioning systems on a room to room basis, don't they?
Well, in this case, no, they didn't. So that'll give you an idea. Now, today, these days, you probably can't go to a major London hotel and not find air conditioning, but that was the case in the early 80s.
Oh, yeah, most
So
likely.
it was hospitals, schools, anything else. You got fans. That's what you got was fans. It wasn't until much later that you got the sophisticated HVAC systems, and that I think is why it dated. And I think it was in the 80s that the Legionnaire's disease was maybe your 90s, originally identified because these HVAC systems had been in place for maybe 20 years and then becomes even not even 20 years, because probably about 10 years, and then they would become too old and they didn't clean them out properly.
Well, that's a
And
big
that
factor,
was
is not cleaning
that
them
was
out.
the breeding ground for the
Yeah.
bacteria.
Yeah, that's a big factor, is not cleaning them out, and that's one of the biggest problems. Especially when you've got a wide-ranging system. That how do you clean them out?
Well,
Properly, you know.
they probably have to, whatever the heat exchange
Oh,
system
you
is.
have to have a duct cleaner to clean them out, but with such a big system, how do you clean them out? Especially when an area is in use 24/7.
If it's a huge central system, yeah, because of the condensation and things like that that can happen in the ducts, that's probably the breeding ground for the bacteria.
Yeah,
And then, so you could presume, well, you've got these ducts, and if you add cold and then warm and then cold, you'll get condensation. If you get condensation, you'll get a breeding ground for bacteria. And I don't know what precautionary measures they use to eliminate Legionnaire's disease nowadays. But it's very important that they find where the source of this is, because other people are potentially going to get sick if they don't identify the buildings or the
yeah,
common denominator among the 360 people that got sick.
yeah. Well, 40. The outbreak is 40 in London, but yeah,
Yeah, well, there's 363 affected or something. Anyway, so there's 40 probably being identified with Legionnaire's disease. That means they are the ones that got sick enough to be identified. Now, most of the time, people get a cough or whatever. They could have Legionnaire's disease, but if they're healthy and hale and healthy, they'll just think, oh, it's a summer cold or some damn
well,
thing.
in fact, actually, for a healthy person, probably a summer cold is what it will feel like.
Yeah, so there'd be a lot more people that have it.
Yeah,
Happily, they can't give it to anyone else.
yeah.
But it's pretty important to find out what that common denominator is, because you don't want other people getting sick, and you've already lost a person, so a person's actually died because of it.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Moving on. The first time a female Kenyan hockey players have ever practiced with women from outside their own country. That's actually, I think that's kind of special. They've
I
come.
was very surprised. Now, the reason why I added this because it was just so interesting, and I thought our listeners might think of this as interesting. So, what has happened is hockey players from another country, women hockey players from another country, have come to Canada to practice and learn a few skills. Well, that in itself wouldn't raise eyebrows,
Yeah,
but the fact that they're from Kenya, they're from the West African country of Kenya, which is a
least
trop
African country.
East Af. I make that mistake every day, even though I know the difference. The East African, like I made that mistake yesterday too, and I know it's East Africa, but I say West Africa. I don't know why. But the East African country of Kenya, which is in the tropic zone,
Yeah. Oh
which is
yeah.
within the tropic of Cancer. So you think of a very warm African country, and you have uh, ladies coming from Kenya and coming to Canada. So it is African ladies from Kenya coming to Canada to play hockey in the summer. Does that all make any sense?
Well, they probably, the interesting thing is about this is, on a hot day, our summers probably, you know, our summer could get hotter than Kenya summer, some Kenya days, but on a cold, they don't experience the cold that we experience because they constant temperature all year round. However,
Oh, they
you,
probably 26 degrees is probably a chilly day to them.
yeah, yeah, exactly. But they're normally about 30 degrees and pretty constant 30 degrees. But actually, the interesting thing is getting inside a hockey rink. I suppose that's the same experience whether you're in Kenya or in Canada right now. How cool it is in the hockey rink.
Well, they're from a warmer country, so the ice there is warmer.
I don't think so.
Well, look, I just thought that was a really interesting article. Now, the country, if anyone was to ask me what country sends uh, their young ladies here to learn and develop their hockey skills, I would have thought, like you would think maybe a developing
Maybe,
country.
oh,
You
well,
would
I
think,
was going
oh,
to say
maybe
maybe
China, maybe
UK or
Mongolia,
China.
maybe Kyrgyzstan, maybe Kazakhstan, but you would not think of Kenya.
Well, I think maybe somewhere like France and Spain and UK, for example, Europe, some of European nations who maybe don't have women's hockey as much. You know,
Well, they have the
let them.
capacity because they're Western countries and they field hockey teams in the Olympics.
Mm,
But if you're thinking of a developing country, uh, you would think of a northern country or
yeah,
a deep southern country. You might think of like Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, where it's cold enough to have ice, but they might
yeah,
not,
but again, they're part of the. They were developed as part of the USSR hockey fanaticism, I would think.
maybe. But my whole point was that if you're looking for a country, a developing country, if somebody said to you, "What developing country sent their young ladies to Canada this summer
I'd
to
say
learn how to
Nepal.
play hockey?"
I'd say
You would
Nepal.
not think of Kenya.
Yeah, you wouldn't think of Kenya. No, no. I'd be saying something like Nepal. You're right.
Yes, and so you would think of a country that could have ice, and but it's very. I'm very happy that hockey is spreading around. The joy of hockey is spreading around the world. People don't get it. Hockey is a really cool game to play. Now, I was a pretty good athlete when I was younger, and but hockey was not. I was not a great hockey player, but I loved playing hockey. I was a pretty mediocre hockey player, but I loved playing hockey because it was fun. And I played in the no hit leagues in Chippewa for 12 years until I got in a car accident in 2003. So it is a really fun game. It really is. Like there is no more fun. And maybe lacrosse. Maybe lacrosse is the only other one like that. No, I've played football. I've played every kind of contact sport or non-contact sport, baseball, you name it. And I have fun playing every one of them. The only one I didn't really have fun was my best sport, which was wrestling, because you only get joy when you crush somebody, when you destroy them. But in the meantime, you have to grapple with some other guy, and so it's not exactly fun, and it's not a team sport. It's a skill kind of, but in hockey, it's just fun. It's just fun to race down as fast as you can down the boards. If you get a goal, you think you're a hero, you know.
Yeah,
Uh, but I'm really glad that the game is getting out there because I think that more and more people could enjoy this game around the world. And the more people that play hockey, the better it is for us because uh, the level of hockey will increase. We'll get better and better players from all over the world. It's pretty exciting.
Kenyan hockey players next year will try breakdancing in the Olympics. Yeah, they did in Paris.
Yeah, they did breakdancing, but well, it's kind of like the Jamaican bobsled team, basically.
Well, actually, the philosophy behind the Jamaican bobsled team wasn't a dumb one because what they had in Jamaica was a ton of truly excellent sprinters, people who could do 100 meters in less than 10 seconds, a whole bunch of them. So what they found, of course, is with that bobsled team is essentially you've got a 20 less than probably a 15-meter run. Get that and jump into the bobsled. If you can get that into place and you can sprint that 15 meters and you're faster than anyone, that helps you get down the ice faster than anyone.
Yeah, but the sprint part is only half of it. How to control the
Oh yeah,
sled
of
itself
course, of course.
is the main thing.
Yeah,
But
bobsled is a bobsled. You're shifting a ton of equipment down that ice.
that's right. And do Jamaicans really know how to drive? That's my kid.
Well, the interesting thing is about bobsled is that, for example, many years the British had good teams that won medals at the Olympics, and a lot of them were actually army people.
Yeah. But remember, the Olympics sort of got out of hand there for a while, where anyone from a country could qualify. So you had Eddie the Eagle, for instance, who
Yeah,
was brave, but his the jumps that he made, the ski jumps he made
he
were,
barely made it over the lip.
yeah. So there had to be control, and then you had a lot of countries entering people as Olympians because they were the best ones at it in their country because they're the only ones, So you had skiers that would take an hour to get down the slalom, but they could be then bragged to be an Olympian. So there had to be conditions placed on the there had to be an elemental level that
Yeah.
you had to be able to go down a cliff or a
Well, I doubt.
ski hill at a minimum time before you even
Yeah,
qualify.
but you see, here's the thing. I doubt that Kenya has been to the Winter Olympics before.
No, they probably haven't because they couldn't qualify. They may have athletes that have indulged in winter sports, uh,
Yeah.
yeah, particularly if they went to school
What
offshore.
emigres, or things like that. People who maybe did ice dancing in the UK, or or Canada, or something like that, or played hockey in Canada, but weren't as part of weren't big enough as part of a team.
Or a Kenyan or a Kenyan who lived most of their life in Canada just happened to have a
Yeah,
Kenyan passport.
yeah, exactly. But I doubt, that typically doesn't get might get one or two athletes there at the Winter Olympics, but not a whole team. This would be different. This would be a whole new direction, I hope.
I can see the new Kenya ski team up on Mount Kilimanjaro because that's the only probably place they'll find the snow. Is it in ten,
You
uh,
can see, well, the closest snow to the equator is on Kilimanjaro, yes, but the trouble is, it's could you make a bobsled thing up, could you make bobsled up there? Probably not. You couldn't do skiing up there either.
yeah, it's pretty high up.
Yeah,
So duplicating the conditions for winter sports in Kenya would be very expensive. But one thing they
yeah,
can do is they can make a rink because that's enclosed. And if
yeah,
they're enjoying ice hockey, then for sure come to Canada, learn how to
well,
do some more.
yeah,
And if you're really
exactly.
good at it, we can express your citizenship of Canada. Maybe that's what we'll do from now on. We don't know who to bring into Canada and what conditions they have to meet. But if they're a good hockey player, okay, you're in.
Well, that's one way of doing it, I suppose. Yep. Okay, so moving on. So, missing welding plates from a Colborne High School prompts police investigation. Tell me why.
This is very important because when you do a welding, and I've done lots of welding certifications myself, it was part of my job. So every 2 years, you have to be recertified
Yeah,
because your welding skills have to be maintained. And sometimes, particularly with millwrights, you might not do a whole lot of welding for a long time, and then so they have to know that your welding skills are what they are because it's a safety factor. It's a
yeah,
safety. Well, these kids at the high school, now this is a controlled situation. They take the plates They stamp the plates with a number. That's your number.
Yeah.
And there is a supervisor, and you go to your machine. You go in the welding shop, and there's a bunch of different machines, and you set up in there, and then you proceed to do your test. With if you're doing recertification, you're doing all you have to do is your overhead. But the other ones you have to do flat, horizontal, vertical, and then overhead. That's called or all position if you get all of them.
Okay.
Right? If you just pass your flat, it's not much, but at least you did pass that. So the kids is very important for the kids. It's a controlled test. It's just like any other exam. There's an examiner there. There's people watching, making sure you don't cheat. You
Yeah.
can't bring a grinder and grind out the slag or something like that. So you have to be a competent welder. Now these kids have all done this test to see who has passed, and if they pass, this means that they will have a much better chance of getting a job somewhere where welding happens. If
Does
you
that
get
mean
your
does that mean that they have to take these weld plates along?
no, what happens is you you have a plate, right? And it's two plates with a backing plate, so there's a gap in it, and one of the sides is beveled. So it challenges your welding skills. You got one beveled end, one squared off end, and you've got a backing plate, and you've got to fill that gap between the two plates with pass after pass. Now
Yeah.
the problem is if you get slag inclusion or you get lack of fusion, all that can be spotted in an X-ray. So what they do is they X-ray it. There's a couple different
Oh.
ways they can do a test. They X-ray them or bend test them, and two different ways. But normally nowadays they X-ray them. Once they X-ray them, then that tells you whether or not you're a competent welder or
So
not. You
so yeah, okay. So if I run a straight line on an X-ray, it will show as being competent. Whereas if I run a spotted line, it would show as not being competent.
Yeah, it looks for fusion and slag inclusion.
Yeah.
So if
Okay.
you rush past a point, or if you don't,
Does that mean that these? But when we're now in the summer vacation, does that mean that these kids have kind of lost their grades? Or surely they would have been graded already.
no, because the plates were lost. This is their test. This is their
Uh,
final exam. So their plates, their weld plates, their exam plates have been lost or stolen.
mm,
Now, that whole pile of steel like that might be valuable to a scrapper, but I don't know why. Somebody seems to have stolen the plates. Now, this has happened to me before, but not stolen, but misplaced. I did a welding test, and the plates were misplaced. So when we asked for the results, that's what we got back. Sorry, we can't help you. Those plates have been misplaced.
yeah.
And I can't remember if we had to redo the test or they found the plates, but that because that was a long time ago. But
Mm.
that was shocking. So there is a lot of expense uh, and conditions for
Well,
these exams.
and in your
Or
welding,
so it takes a long time to do that test,
yeah,
and those tests are then very important because that now once you graduate, and if you have passed the welding test, that will give you a chance of a much better paying job.
yeah, yeah.
And if they're lost, you can imagine the disappointment. If they're stolen, you can imagine the outrage.
Oh,
Now,
yeah,
coincidentally, at this time, the welding teacher was removed from his job. The article says he's a uh, very well liked, very popular welding teacher.
yeah,
He had been videoing his classes, I guess, because he had noticed stuff going missing. Uh, he is then removed from his position after the tests, and no one can tell us why he was removed from his job. It sounds like he's fired,
yeah.
and people say it was personal. So this is mixing everybody up. Is this anything to do with the missing plates? But this is a real,
Yeah, it sounds
real,
like
real.
yeah, it
Go
sounds
ahead.
like it might be associated with missing plates, but equally well, it's easy to make accusations when none are due.
It's very hard to misplace pieces of steel, that many pieces of steel. It's heavy, it's bulky,
Yeah,
and it would take some effort to steal them, and there would have to be a reason why.
yeah,
I have a feeling you might get a kid there that didn't have his best day, knew that his plate was no good, and stole them all, basically to kind of cover his own
that seems
tracks.
more
That's a
likely than a teacher.
possibility.
That seems more likely than a fired teacher.
I don't think the teacher stole them because the teacher was investigating, trying to investigating lost materials. He noticed materials were
Yeah,
were being missing in his welding shop. So if you think of it, like you've got welding rod there, you've got steel plate, you've got a lot of stuff that could potentially be valuable to someone. I'm sure someone would like to steal a lot of welding rod. That stuff's pretty expensive.
mm,
And
yeah,
in any case, uh, in any case here, it is very unfortunate and very disheartening to the kids that took the welding test
yeah, oh yeah,
because they're in a situation of limbo. They're about ready to go off and try to get some jobs this summer, or if they've graduated from high school, they can then use that as credential to get in uh, to
trade
start off
school.
as a, like for instance, if a young man came to the millwright hall and wanted to join the millwright hall, and if he had all position welding tickets, that certainly is a plus.
Yeah,
You come to us. Normally, we have to train the welders, including me. I was trained, but if you already come with a four position, all position welding ticket, or even two positions, it's still a leg up. Okay, the industrial process somewhat. So the so it's very disheartening. And if they don't find them, they're going to have to do the test all over again, which is expensive, and they're going to have to find another uh, uh, person to test the kids, and that's not cheap. I actually just I don't know, about half a year ago, I I was at the automotive shop where I took my car, and there was a guy there, and I knew him, so we started talking. He was the welding instructor and welding examiner that I had many times
yeah,
during my welding rechecks
hmm,
and tests. So we were able to gab it up. But welding is a good, very good skill to begin
oh yeah,
your life. If you get the all position tickets, that means you're going to be able to weld a safe weld. In other words, you're going to be able to weld a, a a lug up on a beam somewhere where you can hang a chain fall. And because you've got your welding tickets, no one's worried that that's going to come off. But if
yeah.
you're just Joe, who knows
Well,
what,
it's a
and
good
welds it
thing.
up there, it's that's why that's why you have to be certified.
Yeah. It's a good thing these schools actually do that kind of stuff because that's highly specialized type of teaching.
Yes, and it's good for the kids. They learn a skill,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that skill can be translated
Right.
into a
It
paycheck.
doesn't matter what the skill is; it's the fact that they're learning a skill that's
Precisely.
has a market value of some kind, right?
And welding is just like anything else.
Yeah.
Most people can learn it. Some people cannot.
Oh
Some
yeah,
people cannot get
absolutely.
it.
You know
But
absolutely. You put two pieces of metal together for somebody who doesn't understand it, and they just don't get it, right?
well, lots of people can understand it but can't do it.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I've known a bunch of people that just could not get it, could not They know what they're supposed to do, but
To be quite
just
honest, I've
can't
never wanted to.
just cannot develop the skills. Now,
Yeah,
there's most of us. We practice, 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 figure it out, and refine our skill level, and then we can do the test. But other people, I'm telling you, they're naturals, man. They
yeah.
are absolute naturals. They go
Well,
in
to be
there and
quite
within a
honest,
short time, they learn the skill and they've got it done. Just like somebody who's very good with math. You
yeah,
could you could you could do that. Some people are uh, take onto it very quickly. Others have to learn it slowly.
yeah.
The same thing with
Well,
welding.
we did soldering at school in our metalwork class, but not welding.
But welding is, and there's different kinds of welding, of course. But to do stick welding, which these kids would be doing, there's MIG and there's TIG and there's all kinds. I even knew a guy that was became an underwater welder. He used to work at the Hodgson's Metalworks right there on Kaler Road, and he was a welder and a fitter there, and decided he was going to make some big coin and learned how to do underwater welding around oil rigs and that. He had coin coming out of his ears.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Okay. Uh, okay. So, would bigger be better for the Canada Day event in Niagara Falls?
Celebrations, yeah. Well, that's the argument. Well, that is what the
That's what
discussion
Chris.
was.
Yeah, that's what Chris Dabrowski is saying.
Yeah. So that's the discussion at City Council. Now we didn't have a parade this year. We don't have very good fireworks. The Americans really blow the sky apart with their fireworks, but we don't do anything like that. We don't want to do it. But they did have a nice celebration at Fireman's Park. The idea, however, is should we expand it? And there's a number of reasons why you want to do that. For one
Well,
thing, you had a
Chris
lot of people coming.
Yeah, Chris Dabrowski is basically saying, is there a way that he's asking, is there a way that we can build on the event that we had at Fireman's Park, make it community first, build tourism potential, have bigger bands, bigger draws, and potentially make money out of the product, out of it.
Oh, just before we go on, I would just like to thank Gary Wilkins, who sent me. He always sends me some interesting stuff from time to time, some just amusing. But he sent me a video by Rebart News, which I normally wouldn't take much interest in, but it was real, uh, uh, real work of journalism here, and it talked about the homeless people in Oshawa who were putting a neighborhood and a business, a Tim Hortons, at risk. So it was very interesting uh, how that came out and the questions that it posed. So I think we probably should talk about it
Yeah.
tomorrow. But
Give us
I
a
will,
give us a
I will,
copy. Yeah,
yeah,
give us a copy.
I will thank Gary Wilkins right now for that, and thanks, brother. Okay, so now we'll go up back
Well,
onto the
yeah, yeah,
Canada Day.
yeah. So the Canada Day stuff, Chris Dabrowski is basically saying, can we do bigger? Can we do better?
Yes, I think he's got a really good point. Look, this is Canada Day. We should be pulling out the stops. But of course, there's restrictions on it. So we had one day, and we didn't have a band that held people. So people came with their families, and they came and went. Um, Now, the big problem, of course, is if you have an event like that, you try to get vendors there, vendors to bring hot
Yeah.
dogs or chips or whatever, and they are reluctant to stay there because it's only a 1 day event. If you had a 2 or 3 day event, they could stay set up, and that would be more
Well, one
convenient
of
and
the
more likely to keep
advantages,
them.
yeah. So certainly, I understand where he's coming from in that regard, and certainly if you had a multi-day event, particularly when if you've got, let's say, okay, so this year we were on a Tuesday, wasn't it? Canada Day, I think, was a Tuesday.
Yep.
Um, Next year it will be a Thursday, I believe, because no, no, sorry, I'm wrong. Next year's not a leap year. It's 28 that's a leap year. Yeah, so it'll be Wednesday next year. But you see, if you had it like a Thursday or something, you could certainly have an event that was Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, couldn't you?
Yes, you could. For instance, if it's a Tuesday, you
Well,
could go
I
from
suppose
Sunday,
you could
Monday,
go,
Tuesday. You could do
yeah,
that, or you
you
could
could
do
do,
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
or you could do
But it would be
Saturday,
nice
Sunday, Monday,
to
Tuesday.
it would be nice to include the weekend somewhere.
Yeah.
So whatever weekend is closest to Canada Day, you might want to do the celebrations on
But
Canada Day
remember,
itself.
But remember also one thing, and which I think is what Mr. Dabrowski is conscious of, is this is school vacation time as well.
Um, yeah. So yeah, but
So
moms and dads are not.
even if it was midweek, you could still have a 3 day event midweek.
Yes, but moms and dads are not off work. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know.
So
Yeah,
that's the hitch there. But if they had, like, for instance, they could go into the night with a band. So that was one of the suggestions by Dabrowski and even Strange, uh, to bring in bands to extend the day. So far you have a day event, and it doesn't break into the night. So if you have
yeah.
a day event, this is not too interesting for most vendors because it's one day, it doesn't go into the night, and their chances of making a profit are diminished. So what you want to do is, if it's you want to extend that day, right, so that you could bring in people who will run a beer tent or fry truck or anything else. One of the suggestions is that Rib Fest uh, people come in and set up for a couple of days
Well,
of ribs, perhaps.
yeah.
Now you have your typical stuff of inflatables and other activities for families, but what they want to do is push it into the night and extend it. Um, I think they should, because Canada Day should be more than just some afternoon, some
Yeah,
morning and afternoon celebration.
yeah. Bring it into the night. Even put fireworks on it,
Well, that's another thing. They want to
or
put
perhaps a
fireworks,
drone
but
show, or perhaps a
that would
drone
be
show. You know.
that would be controversial, because if they had the fireworks there at Farmers Park, you get all the elitists
Well,
over there at
that's
Calogero
actually
Estates
That's why I
pooping their
changed my
pants.
statement. That's why I changed my statement, Dave, because I suddenly thought, oh no, we have fireworks in a place we're not used to having fireworks. Maybe a drone show would be better.
They've had fireworks there in the past. The problem, of course, is they have this gated community close by called Calogero Estates, and they're a little bit prissy sometimes. Fifi was frightened uh, last night because of the fireworks, kind of thing, their little dog or something. So I don't know how they would be able to pull that off, but the drone show definitely would
Yeah.
be a problem, would be a nice. I would like a massive firework display myself because I love them. But even though they might be environmentally bad and all that other stuff, I just love them. They're spectacular.
I know. It's the kind of little boy in you that kind of wants to let go and say, "Yes, I enjoyed that. Enjoy that fireworks show." For a moment, I'm going to let the ecology conscious person in me kind of push them to the background. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. The big booms and the massive flashes in the sky. The pyrotechnics, our artistry is something else. But bad, Dave. That's bad. But anything, I think we should have something. This is Canada Day, for crying out loud.
Well, you could certainly
And
do
we
it.
are a subdued culture, that's for sure. We're not
Yeah.
like the Americans. We don't run around with our flag around and Yahoo, Yahoo, Yahoo. We have a more subdued culture. But
Yeah.
nevertheless,
We could
nevertheless, we
certainly
should
do
have a
something that was like that was like a drone show. That's for sure. One of the things I remember as a kid, when I was living in Southampton in south coast of England, we used to have the Southampton show at a particular time, usually sometime in the summer. I don't remember when. In the common, it used to be an event that took place over the whole weekend. It was an agricultural show that took place in the city, but they had kind of all things where you could go and shoot. What's that thing? Clay pigeon shooting and things like that. A whole
Well, I don't
history.
think we're going to get the kids to start shooting clay pigeons,
No,
but
I'm just saying that there's a whole possibility that you could do a lot more with some of these things, like making them actually a big show that you bring lots of other people to. Is all I'm saying.
now here I think the attitude of Canadians, however, here Mona Patel says suggest events with a fireworks or drone show. And her quote is, maybe it becomes our little celebration. No, don't think of it in little terms. Already you're thinking of little and less. Think of it as big. You want to expand this thing. You
Yeah,
want you
that's
want to
why.
celebrate Canada. You want events for the family. You want bands out there. You want people to collect and kind of just be happy about being Canadians.
Yeah. Yeah, but
Big,
you see,
not small.
Dabrowski is saying we need to go big. If she's saying we need to go small, I don't know. And
No,
I
it's her
think
attitude. It's the attitude. I'm saying she isn't saying going small, but her attitude. Oh, maybe it just becomes our own little celebration. No, she's thinking little. She's already diminished it. Think big.
yeah, yeah,
And yeah. Oh, yes, we'll have our own little cute celebration. No, we're gonna have a damn good celebration, man. That's what you like. Like I sort of, I'm with Dabrowski on this one for sure.
yeah.
Yeah, and yeah,
Obviously, there's
make
a
it
couple
make it
involved.
bigger. And
Yeah,
another thing is, like, if you make it bigger, you can bring in more vendors, and
yeah,
if you have more vendors, you bring in more people. If you
and
have
yeah, exactly. You got more vendors. You could go. You can get food at it. One of the big things about these types of events is lots of food trucks, lots of um, you know general things you can buy.
you want treats for the kids, you want to be able to
Yeah,
buy them an ice
yeah,
cream cone.
yeah, exactly.
You know,
Yeah,
when I was a kid, you didn't get French fries or anything like that, except when you went out, like to the CNE or something like that. We never had them at home. And my parents wouldn't let you buy stuff like that because it was not really that good for you. They
mm,
wouldn't make them. So on days like Canada Day, you could get into French fries and
yeah, yeah.
candy and ice
Yeah.
cream, stuff that you don't normally get at home.
Normally wouldn't get at home. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And then you can get sick all over the car on their way home.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Okay, we've got some comments here. So Mike's saying Canada Day, 4th of July is the largest long weekend of the year. What more could you want? Yeah, and exactly. Um,
Yeah,
what
you need.
two
Yeah,
degrees?
let's make this. Let's really really open it up. Let's get out
Yeah,
there. Like,
yeah.
let's have a decent Canada Day celebration. We are the foremost country in the entire world.
And Mike,
So coveted are we that Trump wants to take us over. I want you, Canada. I want you.
well, Mike makes the point that fireworks are the most environmentally damaging thing there is, unless heavy metals and noise pollution. That's all.
Yeah,
We know that.
yeah.
We know that. We know that, Mike.
Oh
It's just
my.
the kiddish. It's just what goes through Dave's mind is the kiddish kind of. Yeah, I enjoy fireworks kind of thing.
The bam, boom, blam, and a big
Yeah.
sparkle and
Oh yeah.
flash.
And I have
Yes,
to
you're
admit,
right, Mike. You are right. So
yeah,
I will go to a drone show. Uh, yeah, we can do that. Remember, they did have a drone show down on Queen Victoria Park a couple of years ago there, and it was
yeah,
really good.
I went there for it, and I went there on the first abortive night, and they did, and that was a real disaster.
Well, the day that it did happen, um, I went up to the Parks Police and I says, "Can you tell the drone people Dave's here? Okay, we can go on with the show now." And it was fantastic.
Yeah,
It was really good. It was really good. It had a great deal of potential, and I think if it it's not going to dazzle like a fireworks display, but uh, it is probably a lot less environmentally problematic. But if you think of all the batteries in the thing and all that other stuff, it may have been environmentally damaging at the point of the materials being extracted from the ground. I don't know, but in any case, we should do something better for Canada Day. It is a celebration of the world's greatest country. So what are we doing? Pussyfooting around. Let's do something.
yeah, and
So that's off to Dabrowski, and he's experienced at creating events. So he may be a great help.
yeah. Well, I know he's experienced at that, and that's actually one of the things he comes along with. Okay. When I was night auditor, tourist areas shut down from traffic on Canada Day. Yes, I know it was this year as well. All right. All right. Good morning. Have a great day. Yeah. Okay. And you can do laser light show. That's wicked. Yeah, I've seen laser light shows. I've seen that. But laser light shows tend to be better when you've got lots of things to bounce them off of.
Yeah, that Canada Day is one of the longest daylight days of the year.
Yeah.
So it doesn't get dark enough until well after 9 o'clock.
Well, probably best off even at 10 o'clock. And you see, laser light shows really requires you got to bounce the lasers off something.
Well, we can get all the counselors up there and bounce it off of them. Uh, we can get some accidentally hot lasers in there for a couple of them. But look, the whole idea, like, well, I just like to say that 50 years ago, on June 28th, 50 years ago, just a couple of days ago, or about a week or so ago, was the 50th anniversary of the Pink Floyd concert at Ivor Wynn. And just about, I would say, half the people under 30 years old from Niagara went there. Everybody I knew went there. The only person I know that didn't go there was somebody that had to bail somebody out for selling pot at that concert, so had to miss it. And that's the only person I knew that didn't miss it. But I'll tell you that they had a visual part of the show on a big screen, and that didn't come over too well, or not as well as it could have, because it stayed light right till 9 o'clock
Yeah.
during the show. So it
Well,
didn't.
I think I watched. Is this with the wall? The wall?
They did everything.
Yeah, but was it the wall
They
out?
did
The
a lot
wall
of
out? Or,
Dark Side of the Moon.
yeah. Oh, okay.
Uh,
No, I
they had
watched it. I watched it in London with the wall inside Hammersmith Odeon, and they basically built the wall up and broke it down. But it wasn't a, it was not a. The interesting thing is about it was a hologram.
yeah.
They
Well, this wasn't.
hologrammatically built this wall up.
Yeah, they couldn't do that here. They had a missile that was set up at one end, and at one point in the show, the missile came down a wire and smashed into a target on the stage. But the musicians played really well. But like I said, it didn't get dark for a long time, so their visual stuff didn't really work as well as they could have. I imagine
Yeah.
at a night where it's supposed to be dark, it would have been much more visible. But I can tell you that everybody was really happy with it. Um, there's stories I can abound by that, but in any case, I just like to point that out for two
Yeah.
reasons. One, because it was the 50th, and just about there are thousands of people in this town that went there,
Hmm.
and all of the Niagara region. I remember going up there, parking a car, getting on a bus, finally making it close, walking the rest of the way. And the police were really cool. They're telling you, look, if you got beer or cans of beer, or back in those days, mostly bottles, if you got bottles of beer, just do not throw them on people's lawns. Put them someplace by the side of the road in a neat place. Don't make a mess. Don't throw your garbage on people's lawns or anything like that. So they were really cool. They're really cool about everything. They just ask you to behave yourself and not and to be careful with your garbage and stuff.
Hmm.
And totally Canadian. And then uh, and the other reason I said it is because we were talking about laser and other types of visual shows at that time of the year. It would have to happen during a time when it's dark, and that might not happen till after 9 o'clock. So it gives you a limitation
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So your kids might be too tired and sleep through it.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Yeah. Okay. Um, okay. So moving on. Um, okay. There we go. Not feeling well. Doctors are saying don't Google your symptoms.
Yes, this is an article that is a very good article because there's a lot of misinformation out there. Now, I
Yeah.
disagree with them about Googling your symptoms. If you're sick, I'm telling you, if sometimes it's better to self-diagnose because they get it wrong. I can't tell you how many times you get it wrong in the hospital. People I know, God, they almost killed my niece because she told them that she had appendicitis, and they said, "No, you don't." Well, she did, and they didn't get her in there until after it burst, and then they had to do a much more invasive operation
Yeah.
to save
Yeah.
her. So yeah, if you have any kind of reasonable idea, and then yeah, you can look into your own system. But what this is a flag warning you about misinformation and
Yeah.
about quick fixes and things of that kind. So let's say you've got a sore back and you've got a cough, and you look those up, and it says, it could be this, it could be that, but this particular pill will save it. Or if you give us so much money, you'll do this. Or the evil spirits of that stone in your driveway came into your back. Any kind of thing like that. There's a lot of misinformation. So
Yeah. But
before you go
looking.
and look at your own condition on the internet, make sure that you have a little bit of basic knowledge
Yeah.
because you may be led astray.
Yeah. It was basically the key factor here is Google isn't a medical professional, even with
No,
AI.
it isn't. No, it isn't. It's just a place for information. But if you get the wrong kind of information or do not know how to sort out the information, good from bad, you could be led down the garden path.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you may misdiagnose yourself, and it could be serious, and you don't know it, and all kinds of other things. Mike Cushman says the emergency ward is so scary. If you do not educate yourself before going, you could be dead. Yes, yes. That's a good point. That's a very good point because um, they miss so much stuff. I
Yeah.
mean, they made me wait there 8 hours when I had a a blood pressure of over around 200, they didn't come and check me again for 3 hours. So if you've got a blood pressure around 200 and they don't come back until 3 hours later to recheck you, something's going wrong, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Um,
Yeah.
if you're sitting there with appendicitis rolling on the floor in pain and they tell you nothing's wrong with you, you've just eaten something.
But again, how much of you go out and you check your symptoms on Google, fine. Um, but how much of what comes back on Google do you agree? It used to be this thing called WebMD, which was the web doctor, right? And a lot of people would show up at hospitals or doctors' offices having investigated their symptoms, and they tell the doctor, "I've got this disease," right?
Yeah.
What's that? Kleptomaniacs?
Kleptomaniac.
No, that's not kleptomaniacs. The ones who are hypochondriacs.
Hypochondriac, yeah.
Yeah, that's the word I was trying to look for. Yeah. So
Well,
hypochondriacs,
there's that.
they
Here's a quick little.
everything under the sun, you know?
Yeah. Well, here's a quick little comment. Um, here's a joke I heard, and it was a guy. Just he said, "My gynecologist said I was a hypochondriac."
All right. I think we
So
can move.
anyway, yeah. So be very very careful about that, and yes, you have the perfect right to, but you have to have a bit of knowledgeable wherewithal and not be led down the garden path.
Yeah.
And if you are unsure, then do not be convinced by anything you read on Google, even if it's well intentioned, even if it's a medical
Yeah.
site, because you haven't got the wherewithal to make that complete decision. So you can get some pre information from looking it up yourself, what you may have. And, I mean, if you want to be an instant He Man kind of thing, I'm not healthy because I'm obese. And so you then go on to look for cures for obesity, and somebody's trying to sell you pills or whatever else. No, that's not a thing. But if you want, be very careful. That's all I
Yeah.
say. Be very
Yeah.
careful.
Exactly. Okay, so we'll kind of finish with that one, and kind of, I guess we can end it there.
Yes, and as always, I will say, do not forget Gaza. They're going to transfer, which means expel people. They're ramming them all into one part of the country. They're trying to get them all into a very small part of the country, the Gazans, into a very small part of it, where they have humanitarian zones where they shoot them dead every day. Um, this is a terrible, terrible thing, and I say it every day, and I know that you're probably getting sick of hearing it, but do not forget it. It is one of the worst humanitarian crises and that there is today, and because of the Western press unwillingness to offend Israel and the strong Israel lobby, we don't get the complete story.
Yeah.
So whatever you hear about Gaza in the mainstream media, multiply it by 10. That's how bad it is. So, and anyway, otherwise, without further ado, I bid you adieu.